and against the have a handful of other Western countries that want to isolate or at the very least marginalize Iran. Well, good freaking luck. Not when it's pretty clear most of the world doesn't give a tinker's cuss about us. And why should they? Not when 120 countries that make up the biggest single voting bloc in the 193-member General Assembly at the UN want to powwow in Tehran. What does that tell you? What is that saying? What is a country deep in debt and short on global street cred to do? Nothing. We can't do squat. Because that financial basket case is not Iran, it is us, the folks footing most of the bill for the UN. And I suspect covering a good chunk of the airfare for the UN Secretary General's trip to Iran. I just hope it isn't first class. And I just hope once he gets there, at least he's staying like a day's in. I really don't think I could handle a Ritz-Carlton. Too rich, way too rich. And it's a tad unnerving. Wealth manager Tai Young says more than a tad, market unnerving as well. It is incredible, but I get the Times say it is what it is, Tai. When you're broke, you don't have a lot of friends, and we're broke.
Well, Neil, thanks for having me back. And we are $16 trillion in debt. We're adding over $1 trillion in debt on an annual basis. Obamacare is coming in. There's tax-mageddon, and we have the fiscal cliff. So certainly because of those things, our influence is declining. And that's a huge issue. And an equally big issue is lack of leadership. If we look no further, I mean, we've seen this movie before. If we look no further than Jimmy Carter in the late 70s, we had terrible economic policy and even worse, arguably, foreign policy. And we had the Iran hostage situation, and those hostages weren't actually released until Ronald Reagan became president, at least in part, I think, because of his leadership abilities, and they were afraid of retaliation. Well, fast forward to 2012, the last 4 years, our president's gone around the world and apologized to the United States of America, hugged our enemies in Hugo Chavez. In 2009, during the Arab Spring, when the Iranians were rising up and trying to reach for freedom, we did nothing and let them fail. Our missile defense.
To be fair, I mean, the UN has always been a pain in our butt, right? Whether we have Republican presidents or Democratic presidents, you know, they had a problem with George Bush. They certainly had a problem with Ronald Reagan. I don't know what it is about these guys. They just hate us. And look, I mean, there are certainly exceptions. I don't mean to say that. And I do know about the sort of the round-robin nature of these meetings at this UN group. Iran's turn was next, and so Iran's having it. But certainly in this environment, someone should have said, well, Iran, maybe this is not the time. But they didn't say that. And I'm wondering whether there's such a disconnect to this body, we should just say the hell with it.
Well, a UN that's not aligned with the U.S., as you pointed out earlier, is aligned against the U.S. We pay 22% of their tab, more than anybody else. And it seems to me they do everything and anything they can possibly do to act the opposite of our best interest. No wonder here in the U.S. taxpayer sentiment is so negative against the UN. But can you imagine this happening under Ronald Reagan? I don't think so. It's lack of leadership. As I was saying a minute ago, the president he gave up our missile defenses and got nothing in return, and endangered and antagonized our allies. And at the same time, with an open mic, the President of the United States said to the President of Russia, after this election, and I'm paraphrasing a little, we can do whatever you want. That weakens the United States. The debt's a big issue, but leadership is a huge issue as well.
Well, they did. I mean, we could respectfully disagree on in terms of Ronald Reagan. They were not big fans of his or his aggressive military plans, Star Wars and all that. But you are right. It is in the demeanor of the office holder. And that gets back to a general question I want to ask you, the UN aside, about how we're financially seen and how you see the markets going into the fall. Because one day does not a trend make. And actually, year to date, the markets are doing okay. Apple shareholders are doing very okay. But do you see this puppy running out of steam? And play out the fall for me. What do you think happens?
Well, I mean, we're seeing gas prices go up. We're seeing food prices go up. The reason I think the markets have done as well as they have over the last several years is price inflation due to the printing of money and the regular trading. I mean, Goldman Sachs and other hedge fund managers, many of them have sent back money saying that the markets are too manipulated and there's people that are too powerful, like Ben Bernanke and Angela Merkel. So these markets could be dicey here. I'd recommend to folks get your money in a protected place where you can receive a reasonable rate of return.
Man, oh man. Tai Young, thank you.